When you think of iconic characters in gaming, there are always the usual suspects. Lara Croft, Sonic, Spyro, Master Chief, and Crash Bandicoot to name but a few. But the one man who always pops up first in our minds is the most famous plumber in all of the world, with one hell of a mustache, Nintendo's top guy, Super Mario. The dungaree-wearing Italian has been a mainstay throughout gaming history, appearing on every Nintendo console and starred in numerous games in numerous genres, all with varying degrees of success. But where Mario never fails is in his flagship titles, and that is what we're looking at today. So with that said, I'm Matt, you're watching Geekstalgia, and this is every Super Mario game ranked worst to best. Now before we start, a couple of things to get out of the way. The rankings of these games are based on their rating on MetaCritic and not my personal ranking of them. So if you disagree with a game's placement on this list, then don't blame me, take it up with MetaCritic. Although I am planning on following this video up one day with a video on my own personal rankings of the following games, but that is not today. Also, some of the older games predate MetaCritic, so they combine their scores with game rankings before it merged into what is now known as MetaCritic. And lastly, this is a ranking of the main flagship Mario games. So spin-off games like Dr. Mario, Mario Maker, Mario Golf and the like will not be included. One day I might make a video of every game featuring Super Mario, but right now that sounds like a lot of work, and I just can't be arsed right now. Number 10, Super Mario Land, Game Boy, 78%. Releasing way back in the long ago, otherwise known as 1989, Super Mario Land was the first game from the mustachio plumber to appear on a console other than the NES, and was a launch title for Nintendo's groundbreaking handheld system, the Game Boy. It plays the same as its big console brother, a side-scrolling platformer just shrunken down for the smaller screen. Players take control of Mr. Mario as they work their way through 12 levels in pursuit of Princess Daisy, who makes her debut in this game. Super Mario Land helped the Game Boy become the massive success it was, selling 18 million copies worldwide, and would have been the North America's highest selling game of 1989 if it wasn't for that pesky Tetris being so darn successful. Number 9, Super Mario Bros. 2, NES, 81%. A unique entry in the Mario canon, Super Mario Bros. 2 was released in 1988 in North America and a year later in Europe. What sets Mario Bros. 2 apart from the others is how different it played compared to its predecessor. After the absolutely huge success of the first Mario game, Nintendo understandably wanted more of those sweet dollar bills by making another game. So they released a Super Mario Bros. 2 in Japan, very similar to the first game, but with a much higher difficulty setting. However, Nintendo of America believed it'd be too much like the first game, and because this was before Get Good was a thing.
Man, this poop dragon fight's a pain in the ass.
Get good!
Was poop dragon supposed to be hard?
Get good!
I beat it in one try.
They thought difficulty would be too frustrating. So they essentially reskinned another game, Yumi Kojo Doki Doki Panic, that was being developed for Nintendo's Family Computer Disk System in Japan. It is still a side-scrolling platformer, but instead of jumping on enemies to defeat them, you throw objects at the enemies to defeat them. The game sold 7.4 million copies worldwide and was ported to many other Nintendo consoles over the years. The previous version of the sequel, now known as The Lost Levels, became playable too on Super Mario All-Stars. Number 8, Super Mario Bros. NES, 86%. The game that launched 1,000 ships, or some metaphorical saying that goes with what I'm trying to convey here. The first Super Mario Bros. Game made its debut on the NES in Japan in the September of 1985, and made it to UK shores in arcades the following January, but didn't arrive on consoles here until 87, as a pack-in game with Duck Hunt bundled in with the console. It is regarded as one of the greatest and most important games of all time, and is also one of the best selling games ever, totaling over 58 million sales since its release. It is the first game I ever remember playing way back as a young nerd, and it started my love of gaming. From the very start I was hooked and have never looked back. Mario did make appearances before this game, but even if you have never played a game in your life, you know the Mario music, you know the Mario characters and the world, you know how it plays, you know Super Mario, and most of that is down to this game. Home console gaming as it is known today owes a lot to Super Mario Bros. Number 7, Super Mario Sunshine, Nintendo GameCube, 92%. Moving away from the 80s now and skipping the whole of the 90s, and landing square in 2002 for the dungaree-clad plumber's flagship appearance on Nintendo's piece of purple plastic, otherwise known as the GameCube. Like its predecessor, Sunshine plays in a 3D world, so no side-scrolling like the previous entries. However, unlike the other Mario games, this one has a different gameplay mechanic. Strapping a Ghostbusters-esque water cannon called the Flash Liquidizer Ultra Dousing Device, or FLUDD for short, onto Mario's back to clean up Isle Delfino while collecting shine sprites. The game released generally positive reviews, some saying it was the best Mario game to date and placed 46th in official Nintendo Magazine's 100 greatest Nintendo games of all time. However, there were some reviewers a bit critical of the game. Some saw FLUDD as gimmicky and having some characters with full voice acting was a bit jarring. Some were critical of the camera system and the general unpolished feeling of the game. Despite the mixed bag of reviews, the game sold more than 400,000 copies in its first 4 days of release in Japan and selling over 6 million copies total. Number 6. Super Mario World, Super Nintendo, 94%. Jumping back now to the beginning of history's greatest decade, 1990, for the release of Super Mario World. Mario World was the first Mario game made for the Super Nintendo. Taking advantage of new hardware, Mario World had a shiny new look and some bright new colours. The core basics of the game are the same as the previous entries in the series. You control Mario scrolling one side of the screen to the other, traversing across different levels, jumping on enemies, collecting coins and power-ups while trying to rescue Princess Toadstool from Bowser. But with new hardware came some fancy new gameplay features, like the Cape Feather giving Mario the power of flight and the ability to glide. The other major new feature was the debut of everyone's favourite little green dinosaur, Yoshi, bringing the ability to ride him and also eat enemies and spit them out as projectiles, becoming a core gameplay aspect to his own series of games. Reviews for Mario World were and still are overwhelmingly positive, with particular praise heaped upon the graphics and their overall presentation, and how it was a huge leap over the previous generation of consoles and showed the power of the Super Nintendo. Reviewers praised the fun gameplay and the replayability of the title, as well as the sound design. It won the 1991 Game of the Year award from Nintendo Power and is regularly regarded as one of the greatest games ever made, and sold over 20 million copies and was a top-selling game for the SNES. Number 5. Super Mario 64, Nintendo 64, 94%. The game changer, bringing Maz to the world of 3D and blowing my tiny little mind way back when I got an N64 for Christmas all those years ago. Releasing in Japan and North America in 1996 and 97 here in good old Blighty, Super Mario 64 was a huge step forward in gameplay and game design, and has been hugely influential on the whole of the gaming industry, from game development to the speedrunning community and the modding community, to name but a few, and was also the first appearance of Charles Martinet as the voice of Mario in a full game.
Hello, it's me, Mario. Woohoo!
The basic premise of the game is the same as previous entries, because if it's not broke, don't fix it. You play as Mario on yet another quest to rescue the princess from the clutches of Bowser, collecting stars on the way from different worlds, this time within paintings. To do this, you can use the new gameplay mechanics like triple and long jump, punching and kicking, and also backflips, all within this glorious three-dimensional world. As you can probably assume from my talking about it, Mario 64 was released to widespread critical acclaim, and is regarded as one of the greatest games ever made, with pretty much every aspect of the game receiving praise. The only small nitpicks were the camera system, which for a first attempt in a 3D world, I'm sure can be forgiven, and others didn't like there were so many hints and tips laid out in the game. Mario 64 has won numerous awards, including multiple Game of the Years, and has appeared on so many best games of all time lists. It sold nearly 12 million copies during the lifespan of Nintendo 64, not including its re-releases, and was the best-selling game on the Nintendo 64. Number 4. Super Mario Galaxy 2, Nintendo Wii, 97%. Releasing back in what I'm sure was only yesterday, but turns out was actually over a decade ago in 2010, Mario Galaxy 2 originally began life as Mario Galaxy More, an expanded version of its predecessor, before it was decided to be a full sequel. Playing pretty much the same as the first Galaxy game, number 2 brought new power-ups, dynamic environments, and your boy, Yoshi. Critics praised the game as an improvement over the first game and hailed it as the Wii's best game. However, some critics knocked it for the increased difficulty and for being frustrating towards the end, and for not having the same impact as the first game. Despite those criticisms, Super Mario Galaxy sold 7.4 million copies during its run on the Wii, and was the 14th best-selling game on the console. Just a little bit behind. Number 3, Super Mario Galaxy, Nintendo Wii, 97%. Releasing in November of 2007, Super Mario Galaxy debuted to universal acclaim, and was, right up until their closure, GameRanking's highest ranked game of all time, and was the first Nintendo game to win the BAFTA award for Best Game. Like the previous entry on this list, Galaxy is set in space and tasks players as Mario to collect power stars in the standard Mario method, completing levels, defeating bosses, etc., only this time in space.
Space!
As per usual, Bowser is up to his old tricks. Bowser gonna do what Bowser gonna do, and it's up to Mario to stop his evil schemes, using all his abilities and power-up suits, including the new B suit. As mentioned previously, Galaxy received very high praise for every aspect of the game, from its graphics and aesthetics, its new and varied gameplay, music, and for being very, very well made. During its run, it sold 12.8 million copies worldwide and was the third best-selling non-bundled game and the 9th best-selling Nintendo published game for the Wii. Number 2, Super Mario Odyssey, Nintendo Switch, 97%. The most recent mainline Super Mario game to be released, dropping way back in 2017. It's been nearly 6 years, Nintendo, give me more Mario, please. Odyssey saw players once again take control of Brooklyn's best plumber, which should be pretty obvious now this far into the video. Building upon all the things that came before, creative and beautiful 3D world environments, all of Mario's finely honed abilities, familiar enemies, to name but a few. Mario Odyssey added a new feature in the form of Mario's hat becoming sentient and going by the name of Cappy. Players can now throw Cappy onto enemies, NPCs and objects, taking control of them to overcome obstacles and reach new areas. All the while traversing to different kingdoms on the good ship Odyssey, collecting power moons to stop the forced wedding of Bowser to Princess Peach. Super Mario Odyssey released to universal acclaim, receiving a perfect 10 out of 10 score from IGN and GameSpot. And like many other games starring Maz, it makes it onto numerous best ever game lists. The aesthetics, the gameplay, the replayability, the portability, everything about Odyssey was praised and loved. Well, almost everything. The only criticism I and many others had was on the motion controls, which felt imprecise, because you just can't beat a proper controller, can you? Odyssey is a celebration of Super Mario and the franchise, taking everything that came before and building upon it, even down to the 2D platforming sections and the new Donk City that never failed to put a smile on my face. In the US and Europe, it became the fastest selling Mario game ever, dropping 1.1 million copies in 5 days. It was the highest selling game of 2017 and went on to sell 23 million copies total. But seriously though, Nintendo, time for a new game now, please. Yeah? Number 1. Super Mario Bros. 3, NES and SNES, 98%. So here we are with officially the best Super Mario Bros. Game of all time. Releasing in Japan in October of 1988 and nearly a full 3 years later here in the UK, Super Mario Bros. 3 plays like you instantly think a Mario game would, the classic Mario way. 2D side-scrolling, platforming the way Mario does best, traversing through each level of each land, each with a different theme, like Desert Land and Giant Land for example. Like Mario Bros. 1, it builds upon the gameplay and adds new abilities like the Tanuki suit, allowing Mario to fly for a short period of time, and features the first appearance of the Ground Pound. The plot is a slight deviation from the standard Mario story. Instead of chasing after Bowser to rescue a kidnapped Princess Peach, players assume the control of the plucky plumber, when he is tasked with retrieving the king's magical wand after it is stolen by Bowser's 7 children, the Koopalings. This game, as is the norm for a Mario title, received widespread acclaim from critics and fans alike, with platitudes like flawless and the Mona Lisa of gaming being thrown its way. By 1995, the game had sold 14 million copies and 17 million by the year 2000. It was the third highest selling game on the NES, falling behind Duck Hunt and the first Mario Bros. Game. It is one of my personal most replayed game and is one I regularly find myself going back to even today. My personal list of favourite games or best games ever is always in a state of flux and forever changing, but Super Mario Bros. 3 is always consistently high up in those lists. I have played many games in my life, but few have become a core memory like Super Mario Bros. 3. And so we have reached the end of this list. That was the Super Mario Bros. Games ranked worst to best according to MetaCritic. But what is your ranking of these games? Why not tell us in the comments below? While you're there, why not tap that thumbs up button if you enjoyed it? And if you want to see more videos, there's also a subscribe button around here somewhere. If you want to show it to your friends or share it with your enemies, there is also a share button as well. But until the next video comes your way, whatever it may be, thank you for watching, take care of yourselves, take care of fellow humans, and I hope to see you all again soon.